Okay, we're live.
Thank
Super.
you, Mary.
Well, then I'll officially call the meeting of the Park Board Investment Committee committee to order. It's 3:04. And for purposes of the minutes, this is Jim Getz, the chair, and Kevin Flynn is in attendance. Steve Pullman is in attendance, and Craig Sherman's in attendance. And we will be joined shortly by John Nyer. I did want to let you guys know, and I'll repeat it when John gets on, but our illustrious committee member Kevin Flynn is still joining us as a committee member, though he is transitioned and is no longer a park board commissioner. Kevin's term expired, and as we all know, he is pursuing a seat on city council again, and asked the mayor to appoint somebody to fill his seat that would now be vacant. So we now have a new board member that took effect at our board meeting last week, Molly North. So Molly North is a new park board member. I have not spoken to her yet about potentially joining this committee. Molly, just as a little bit of background, is CEO of Al Nyer and is also very active in the community on several boards. She's the immediate past president of the Cincinnati Chamber Board and also is on a number of other boards and committees with the city and the community. So she is a very busy person, but her background, she was CFO at Al Nyer before becoming CEO. So she would be extremely qualified to join our committee. But again, I have not had an opportunity to speak with her about that yet, just waiting to get a time, give her some time to get her feet wet and to assess the amount of time she had available. So our first agenda item is approval of the October 21 meeting minutes. Are there any changes, corrections, additions? Hearing none, can I have a motion by somebody?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
By Steve. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those, the minutes are unanimously approved. Craig, I thought since there are a number of follow-up items that we had from our minutes, perhaps we could just briefly go through those and give an update for everybody on where we stand on those follow-up items. And the first one relates to a follow-up that I had to set up a meeting with Kay Geiger at PNC Bank to discuss performance. I did speak with Kay. We had a meeting scheduled to discuss this last week. And unfortunately, PNC had to cancel. Craig and I were scheduled to participate. Kay was going to be on the call, the Zoom call, as well as her relationship people. So we are in the process of rescheduling that meeting. I anticipate, or I thought, the reason that it may have been canceled was they may have been waiting for the fourth quarter results to be finalized, which have now occurred. So we'll follow up to get that meeting scheduled. And we can talk about that a little bit more as we look at performance for the fourth quarter. The next item was related to legal review of some of our trust funds. And Kevin and I did follow up, as we said we were going to do, with the city solicitor. and about obtaining tax and or trust attorney expertise. And we have now engaged with an attorney that the city has put us in contact with. We have first provided to them all the detail pertaining to the Bicentennial Commons Trust Funds and provided a series of questions for them. They are reviewing that. And Craig, I will give you a call. They would like to do a Zoom meeting to talk about where they are. And they are suggesting, I just talked with Bill earlier today, he's suggesting Friday. Kevin, is that something you want to be involved with? I definitely want somebody besides myself.
I think so, since I've got the familiarity with it.
Yep. Okay, once that's confirmed, they were looking at Friday at 2:00 was what he had proposed. So I wanted to bring that up to this meeting. Craig, what's your calendar look like?
Friday at 2 works.
Okay.
I'm open.
Okay. Once that's confirmed, I will forward. They were going to set up Zoom contact. He said that they were at a point where most of the work on that first set of questions, they were ready to talk to us about. They weren't ready to give us a final, but had a couple questions. So I think it would be good. Shouldn't take us very long. So we will, like I said, I'll forward that to you as soon as I get that Zoom information.
Not to disparage lawyers, but that's very refreshing to have lawyers get back that quickly with an answer.
Well, as you might guess, Kevin, I followed up with them. And so I called them, and I am used to managing lawyer relationships, attorney relationships. So I'm trying to follow up and keep us moving forward. The second piece of information that is about ready to go to them. I'm just looking here. Okay, I just wanted to be aware of. I am asking him to give us his thoughts on what would be appropriate, if not legally required, for information that we should be receiving as beneficiaries to the Parks Foundation endowments. So I am not sending, obviously I don't have any documents related to the foundation, but am laying out, and I will copy you all again when I send this to him, just general questions asking what type of information should we be expecting to receive as the beneficiary. There is a meeting scheduled with the city manager, Brad and I, and the foundation board chair and vice chair, and are both directors, next week, I believe it is, or the week after that, to discuss questions that the foundation has raised as to sharing of information and questions on the MOU. So I wanted to get his perspective. I believe that it would be reasonable for the park board to receive some information regarding the amount of funds in trust for parks as beneficiary and anticipated distributions, that sort of thing. But I just want to be on know from a legal standpoint what should be provided.
Jim just happened to be looking up some other information, and I noticed that the Parks Foundation does file 990s.
Mhm.
The ones that are publicly available, I think the most recent one is 2018. But
That's correct.
I think it would be appropriate that as they file those, that because they are public record, a copy would come to us. That would show us at the very least what the total that they've got on hand is.
Yeah.
So we would know they've got $21 million in endowments or whatever. We wouldn't know necessarily this much is restricted to X and this much is restricted to Y, but we would, that is certainly public information that we would be entitled to, just as any other member of the general public would be entitled to it.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I found in doing that, some of our trusts, some of our endowments have filed 990s.
Huh.
Others have not. So that it again goes to the question that we started out with for our attorneys is, let's get this figured out the right way. Is there some difference between these trusts that requires some to file 990s and others to be considered public trusts that don't require that?
Yeah. And Craig has provided to me documents that he has. I'm still going through some documents that were given to me way back when. I think it's the same documents Craig has, but Mary Jane had given me a flash drive with a number of documents. So I'm pulling that together. Once I get the foundation question to the attorney, then very quickly after that, I'll forward the balance of our endowment funds that we are managing here with those questions, and we'll copy you guys on those as well. Yeah, I did note, I did the same thing, Kevin, as far as the 990, and I know that net assets with the foundation grew from 13.8 in 2018 to 15.2 million at the end of 19, but the actual document was not filed or available, as you saw on GuideStar at that point. So yeah, so those are general questions that I just want to be able to share when we meet with the foundation. And then, as I just said, we will forward to him the questions that we had raised with the other foundations related to tax classification, as well as just the nature of the documents themselves. And there was a whole list of questions that we had developed, and we'll forward those on to them as well. Craig, we had a follow-up here to reach out, that you would reach out to Karen Alder to inform her of the purpose of the inquiry about the EINs. I don't know if it's just that we will take a look and ask the attorneys to ensure which EIN should be used in all of our trusts, if they are indeed trusts. Since we found that some are the cities, some are their own, etc. So that's, I don't remember why we had a follow-up for you to reach out to Karen Alder, but.
Yes, Commissioner Getz, that was just to give her a heads up.
Okay.
That I would give her a heads up about the inquiry. And she's aware of it, and she fully supports it.
Okay. And then along the same line of issues, we will be asking the attorney also to look specifically at one of the trusts in which Fifth Third Bank is the trustee, to determine for us or give us input on the appropriateness or the legal standing if Fifth Third really is the trustee and if it's a true trust, that sort of thing. So that will be part of the questions. We had Craig was going to follow up with the city to obtain detail about the trust held by the city. Do you have anything new on those three little trusts?
Commissioner, I received balances. I don't recall if I forward that information in regards to the three trusts. There wasn't a whole lot from a documentation. Did I share that information with
I
you?
think we've got the balances. We know that. I think at some point the question will be with the city, are those trusts available to be transferred to us, or do they need to stay with the city, that sort of thing. But I think that will be, we can continue along that line as we're talking with the attorney as well. And then Kevin also asked, when outside capital dollars are sent to the city and sitting in capital accounts for restricted capital projects, are we receiving any interest on those accounts? Do you know of, Craig?
Oh, I know I followed up with this and I did receive an answer. I will need to go back in my
That's fine.
emails
That's
and
fine.
locate it. And
We'll just follow up. If you do get a answer on that, just shoot us an email.
I believe it is a no for us receiving it, but I'll just verify that.
Okay.
I don't like that answer. Mr.
I think you need to go back and say, I don't think we heard you correctly. Revisit that question. Those were the only follow-ups that we had from the minutes. So
Let's put it this way, Mr. Chair, somebody's getting interest on that money. So
yeah, that's a good point. The interesting thing is commingling of funds might be an issue there. I don't know if truly, well, it'll be an interesting discussion. So, all right. Well, Craig, why don't we move on now to review of the performance report. Craig forwarded two documents to us. One is just the endowment fund summary with just the fund balances, and you can see that as of December 20, our true endowment totals were just shy of $20.5 million. And then our piece of the commissioner's fund that we have invested was just shy of $4 million. So you can see that the funds that we are watching on a quarterly basis reached $24.449 million as of the end of December. So Craig, I think the key document though is the other one. And if you want to walk us through the performance report, the allocation and performance.
Absolutely. And I do want to bring up, so I received these items, the actual reports from each of the investment managers. And besides this report, would the investment committee like to receive those reports that I received? They're going to obviously be a little bit longer, more detail in nature.
I personally do not. Steve's a glutton for that sort of thing. But personally, Craig, unless there's something that sticks out in our questions, or as we look at performance, or if there's anything, as you look at them, if there's anything of note that you'd want to bring to us, but I don't need to see all of I think our periodic review of each fund manager will be sufficient for me, at least, of seeing all the nitty-gritty.
Sounds good. So we'll move on then.
Steve and Kevin, I don't know what.
I would agree. I think this is a pretty nice summary. And if we ever had any particular questions about an investment or its benchmark, we could ask Craig for more detail. But until then, this report and the trends on this particular report have been fairly consistent for the last couple of years, right? The strengths and weaknesses and opportunities are all on the same line. And until something else jumps out at us, I think we got enough.
Okay, good. So Craig, it's up to you. Feel no pressure, but we want every page reviewed and and we'll expect you to tell us when something is amiss. But if you want to walk through this report with us, Craig, that'll be great.
Yes, and that's something when I go through the reports, I look at any anomalies or concerns and then try to get additional information from the investment managers. So looking at this is the last quarter of 2020 performance report. And as you can see, and from that last report, you see we're back above our highs from, it would have been January, February of last year. So we're performing pretty well. A lot of when you look at US Bank, they're in line with our custom benchmarks. So when you look at the Drabner Fund, there's really no significant variance between each of the funds in the benchmark. Miles Edwards is something that continues to be the story. I don't know why it's the same reason, but if you look at the 1 year performance versus the benchmark, there's a pretty significant variance, but the same reasoning explanation from prior requests is ongoing. But their overall performance, when you look at longevity with long gainers, they're performing at a pretty high level versus other funds, especially when you look at the 5 year and the 3 year performance. And I know moving down to PNC, this
Craig, before you move on, I think with Miles Edwards, knowing that even though the benchmarks are more generic, we don't have benchmarks that match their investment style. And that's where we know that they are a dividend growth fund style of investing. And that did not perform well. That sector did not perform well this past year. I know in talking with other investment professionals, they're expecting, or I've heard from multiple people, that value stocks should be poised for a better year this year, but we'll see. But that doesn't surprise me. And I think if we had Jim on the call today, he would probably give that type of explanation, that though it's part of the S&P, it's a very narrow slice of the investment style under the S&P.
And then looking at the PNC with the Bettman Trust, you can see it's continually underperforming based on the benchmarks. And this is something I know we want to discuss with Kay and
and wanted to get your input, Steve and Kevin, as well. I was going to send this page to Kay in advance of our meeting and perhaps have a brief call with her before the Zoom meeting with all of her people on the line, just so she can see. This is public information anyway. So I think this would highlight to her what our issues are. And it's not, I think it's data. And I think that helps frame the discussions with her. Do you guys agree, or do you have any heartburn with me giving her this page?
I think it would be a good idea. And then in all fairness, help them frame their explanations as to why. Craig and Jim, have they ever expressed that this wasn't a good benchmark for them either? The 65, 35, and and 60/40. That's a pretty typical not-for-profit endowment portfolio. I just didn't know whether they ever expressed any concern. Similar to Jim, he would maintain that ball and gainer portfolio is always going to be below the high water mark of the market, but always do better than the low market, meaning you wouldn't expect him to return 14% this year. But when it's bad, you wouldn't expect him to return 2% either. Has PNC ever said anything kind of like that as well, that this just wasn't a good benchmark?
In the couple times that I think we've had them in, we've shown them this. It's the same benchmarks I think they provide to us in the report. Craig, when the reports had actually come from them, perhaps you can send to me the PNC, the Bettman report for year end, just so I can take a look at that before the call to K. But Steve, I think they've had an opportunity, because I think each time we talk with them, we are comparing to the benchmark.
I thought they chose the benchmark.
I do too.
And I think that's what we've always said at this meeting. I was just giving them one more benefit of the doubt. That kind of 65-35, you'll remember, Jim, that's kind of how we structure the YMCA endowment. And we just had between 14.5% and 15% for the year, very similar to that US bank portfolio. So I just wonder that if we're missing something, then it would be good to give them another chance to explain. For example, in their fixed income portfolio, do they for some reason have a lot more cash on average than they should? But otherwise, I'm with all of you. I'm surprised at why it would only be 10.5% or 10.9 year to date.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, well, I will do that. I will forward this report to Kay and have a brief telephone conversation with her to give her a heads up. But this is because I told her when I've talked with her, I told her that we were concerned about the performance. And so I would like to give this to her and talk with her one-on-one before we've got the cast of thousands on the line with them.
I think that makes sense.
Okay. I'm sorry, Craig, back to you.
Moving down to Fifth Third Bank, you can see that they're similar in line when you look at, they're a little less than a US bank on performance. So there's really not much noise there regards to how they're looking. When I tend to look at this, I always look at the 3-year, 5-year, and obviously a little bit of the first year to see how they're performing versus their benchmarks, the custom benchmarks. They are below. So I look at Fifth Third Bank as an investment manager. You're not as they're not performing as a U.S. bank, but they're not down there with the PNC investment managers. They're just right in the middle. But they do, if you recall, they have the highest fees of any of the investment managers.
Say that again, Craig. Fifth Third does?
Yes, they have by far the highest fees.
Okay. I was going to pull that. You gave us that. Was that in November, or you had given us a summary on fees?
Yes, it's a fee report from Fifth Third Bank, actually from them. Then the other one was, so from a fee structure, Fifth Third's the highest, then it's PNC, then the lowest fee structure, the lower one, significantly lower, is US Bank and Ball Gainer.
Okay. I'll pull that out as well, Craig, so that we've got that when we talk with PNC as well, because it's not an issue that, yeah, we may be lower here, but our fees are significantly lower. That's not the case. So I'll pull that out too.
You know, what's interesting about Fifth Third, we must not have enough money there to qualify for, you know, their lower not-for-profit type rate, because 100 basis points is pretty high for an endowment fund. For example, usually all of these guys have significant discounts for portfolios like us. For example, we only pay 20 basis points to US Bank at the Y. And perhaps in order to get much lower than the 100 that we pay Fifth Third, maybe they would have to have $10 million before they start shaving that rate. But the others are offering us lower than 100 basis points, and it's not like any of them have $10 million. It just seems high for this type of. I mean, this is a pretty easy, passively managed portfolio, I would wager.
But again, they're the trustee on this one.
They are the trustee on each of the funds except for the levy clock at $35,473.
And Steve, when you were quoting the 100 basis points, did that roll in both the trustee fee and the management fee?
You know,
Yes.
I bet it does, and I'll bet that that's part of this story. They pay themselves twice.
Yeah, they're getting trustee and they're getting that extra fee, I bet.
That may be most of the story.
But it's a good question that we can specifically ask.
Yeah, because it's our money, not theirs. So it should still. It's legitimate that they have other fiduciary responsibilities here, but 100 basis points is 100 basis points.
Yeah.
Well, and Steve, going along with that, and this would be a follow-up question with our trust attorneys, would be, you know, how does the fiduciary, you know, they're getting compensated for exercising fiduciary responsibilities. How does that play when they're paying themselves that money and it's costing us more than it costs us at other places?
Yeah.
I think you said that more eloquently than I, but yeah, that was what I meant.
Yep. Okay. Any other observations or discussions, or comments on the performance? One of the other.
Can we have another year? Can we have another year like this year?
Yeah, where do we sign?
That's we'll just add that to Craig's goals and objectives for the year.
I don't know about that. Yeah, I feel like there may be a little bubble out there. So I don't know when it's going to burst, but on certain stocks there are. But I hope from an investment standpoint that the investment managers are knowing what to avoid, what sectors to avoid.
Well, and I know one thought that I had is because it's at such a high level, should we be looking at where we have an opportunity to take some off the table, so to speak? And I think about those funds that we returned to the endowments in around $1 million. It just seems like, I know, you know, when you think about your own portfolios, I know it was a question that I have, is it time to sort of, you know, obviously these accounts are meant to be in perpetuity, but we're at a pretty high point here historically. And if they're there's a couple things we could do if we wanted to. Number one in my mind was still the $1 million that we sent back to Corpus. And then also we only took, Craig, what did we do, 2 or 2.5 this year versus, we took a smaller distribution this year and said that we would review it near the end of the year. Now, it's an interesting question because our Commissioners Fund has grown, everything's grown. It's not like we've spent down money to a point where we could put all of that to use, even though we should be. But I don't know, it was just something in the back of my mind to talk with you guys about. Is it something we should be thinking about or look at?
One thing I do want to bring up, so in regards to the distribution amount, I do believe it's like 2.5%. Could have been 2, but in regards to 3 funds, it would be the Meyer Fund. These are ones that were deemed private foundations this year.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be the Meyer Fund, the Hawk Fountain Fund, and the Fleshman Endowment Garden Fund. We were distributed at a 5% rate with a catch-up. So for the example, for the Meyer Fund, we received $200,000 in distribution this year. And then for the, then for the other, I believe it's Fleshman or the Hawk, it was 148,000.
Yeah.
I think I'm mixing up the Fleshman and Hawk and the Hawk Foundation. So we did receive a 5% distribution from each of those funds on top of a catch-up distribution.
Okay.
Jim, I'm not on the board anymore, so I can say this. You know, if we're thinking that there might be some kind of a correction or we think we're at a higher point than we want to be invested, rather than working it backwards to say, Park Board, tell us what you need that can't be funded. Can we say, we've got X number of dollars that we would like to be spent out of these funds this year on capital projects that, you know, give us some of your low hanging fruit that's not going to take 3 years of planning to be able to spend it. We want these dollars spent this year. We have them ready to go. Here they are. Spend them. So it seems like we've been talking for months about, you know, capital projects and what's going to get done this year and what's not going to get done. And we know we've got these needs because things are in poor condition in many of our parks. Let's reverse. I think sometimes we're so used to not having money, or that being said that we don't have money, that when we've got the money, people that are in the position of doing projects are afraid to say, well, we can spend it.
Yeah.
Tell them we want you to spend this much money without it taking away too much time away from the planning and the work that you were already planning on doing this year.
Point well taken. And I will forward that question or have this conversation with Kara as well, just to and the next opportunity I have with the rest of the board members, bring it up as well. That's sort of where I was thinking too, Kevin, is that none of us have a crystal ball as far as what the market's going to do, but we do know for a fact that we're at a very high point at this moment. And if there was a time when we have money that could be spent, you know, now would be the time to sort of take some off the table and use it.
knock off a couple more of those poor projects that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Steve, that what he was referring to, we just had a consultant report that went through our entire system, park by park by park, and gave us a detailed report of facilities and what's in poor condition, okay condition, whatever, good condition. So that's what Kevin's referring to.
You know, I think the timing is ideal to do something like that. You're probably not going to have this luxury. In essence, it allows you to tackle those things more affordably, kind of, in quotes, because you've got this house money that you can use versus ever having to dip into more routine appreciation. But I have a question. Do we have the flexibility to move that a lot more money back to operations above the regular spend policy, return to operations policy? What were your ideas that you would undesignate chunks of this $24 million that are, you know, by definition more unrestricted? I'm just curious, what do we have the flexibility to move it back and spend?
Yeah, the two things that I was thinking of was, number one, back a couple years ago, I think, we returned from our commissioner's fund, we returned money back into these funds. And there was even a question after the fact when Craig, and this was done before Craig got here. And in some of the stuff Craig's looking at, he's actually raised the question of, are we allowed to do that? So that, in my mind, I've always had in the back of my mind, and I think it was about $1.3 million, I'm not positive, but we sent that back, that in theory, that's money that we could take back. So that would be that money. And then also we could, rather than doing the 2% that we declared, we could go back to the board and say, we recommend you take 5%. So the funds that didn't automatically send us 5% this year, we could go back to some of those other funds and take the 5%, the additional 3%, so to speak.
I think both of those make sense. And what would you have to do? Would the park board would have to approve either of those actions?
Both. Yeah, the park board would have to approve any of those types of actions.
I think that hangs together. The timing's right, probably.
Okay.
And also just spending from the commissioner's fund that we've got almost $4 million in there right now.
Well, actually, total commissioner's fund, I just happened to do a summary the other day. We've actually got, the commissioner's fund right now is up to over 7 million. Now, some of that has been certified. Some of that's to be used for current year budget, but we've grown just from July 1. Our commissioner's fund had a 6.1 balance, and now it's up at 7.3 balance. Now, as I said, and Craig, don't get nervous, I know that a lot of that, a portion of that 7.3 has either been certified or earmarked for expenditure as part of our operating budget this year. But even so, Craig's looked, and I think the last time you looked at this, Craig, I think there was close to $3 million. If that, for some reason, that number sticks out in my mind, that there was unrestricted funds that could be used.
I can actually tell you real quick because I reconciled the fund. I'm reconciling. I have a little bit to go yet. So looking at unrestricted, and this doesn't count like if there's dollars available to use. I have 2.2 million.
Okay. So to your point, Kevin, we've got sitting there already 2 million that we could allocate to current year spending if there's something that needs to be spent. Plus, if we decided to pull those the monies that we just talked about out of the funds. So there's there's, I keep looking to see how many people are participating in this call. There's funds there. There's funds there. And to your point, Kevin, I think it's something that I will bring up to the commissioners and to Kara again. Just the state of where we are from a financial position.
Good problem.
Yeah, yeah. I rather have this than the alternative.
And one thing I didn't include in that 2.2 million is the value change of the PNC investment. So that value change out there is around 384,000. So that is not included in that 2.2 million.
So maybe 2.5 million. But
Yeah.
And I would also assume that you would include the growth on the money that we sent back.
yeah, that's true.
When we sent it back in 2018. You know,
Yeah.
if we sent $1.2 million back, that's probably $1.8 million or something like that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just think, I mean, this is really unusual for the city in particular. There's nobody else that has endowments like this. The other departments have foundations, they have money that's set aside for them, but it pales in comparison to this. And I just think from a city perspective, this is out there now. And when we, you know, it's not like we can exist independently. These monies are supposed to be here in perpetuity, but council members are going to see this and they're going to say, we're not going to give you more capital dollars to do the capital projects that you need because you've got this money sitting here. Let's spend some of it, get our parks where they need to be. You know, my particular desire revolves around accessibility and making sure that the playgrounds are available for kids of all abilities, that our park trails can be used by everyone. But again, I don't even, you know, my point on this kind of spending should be what's in the worst condition that's easiest to spend, that's not going to take a lot of planning to spend
Yeah.
it. You know,
Yeah.
that something literally that we could buy off the shelf and write the check and it starts serving the people of Cincinnati this year.
Yeah. Or pure maintenance where you contract with a contractor to go in and
Right.
fix it. Yep. Well, as I said, I'll carry these comments back to the board so that they are aware. And again, to Steve's point, it's a good problem to have. If you even want to call it a problem, it's a good position to be in, I should say. So I will encourage that we consider what we're talking about here.
Hey, Craig, before we leave that performance chart, did you notice that the current year-to-date performance is a little bit different than the 1 year performance? And
Yeah.
that's because PNC is at 10.89 instead of 10.47, or vice versa. One of those numbers is, I'm sure, right, but and of course it's PNC, but because everybody else, you know, it's identical. The 1 year is the current year-to-date return.
Yeah.
Let me pull that in. I'll take a look at that. Yeah, it should be identical. That's you. Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't notice that, but that could be just an error on my part. I would.
Oh no! Don't own that one yet until you verify.
Actually, I got pulled up right now to see if it was.
It was somebody else. Somebody else.
I think it's 10.89 because the
Yeah.
lower one on it is higher. So when you blend it, it'll.
Yeah, it should have blended. I know what I did. It is,
Copied
it's a formula error on that top line number. So that top line, so the current year to date, the 10.89 is correct, because on the next year, that's when the PNC Commissioner Fund investment went to a full year. So the formula, the main formula on that row should be 10.89.
Okay.
Good enough.
If you want to
Update that.
shoot,
before you
yeah,
send it.
update that and shoot me a new one, or shoot all of us if you want. Just email all of us, just so I've got the correct one when we send it to Kay.
Good catch, Steve.
You know, I knew there was a reason we'd ask him to be on this committee, so.
Mission accomplished then.
Yeah. You got your check mark for the quarter.
I got in the
Anything-
minutes. I'm in the minutes now.
There you go. Craig, did you have anything else on this report?
No, I do not.
Okay. Discuss outstanding items and park projects. I think the big ones that I'll just mention to you, the bank's Smale extension to the Smale Park down by the new music venue. That park is moving right along. They're expecting it potentially could be complete in the spring. The good news is that we had requested from the state of Ohio, we had requested funds from their capital budget for the park portion of that development, and we did receive, was it 1.3 or 1.7? Correct? Do you remember, or Kevin?
1.7 million.
Yeah, we had asked for 2 million and got 1.7, so we're happy about that. So that money will be coming in. The foundation continues to do some fundraising to look at additional enhancements to that park. So that's moving forward. We have a park in Mount Washington that we've built a new pavilion at Stanberry Park. That's about ready to open up. We've got the foundation has been working on an Ezra Charles statue that will go into Lincoln Park. Is that Lincoln Park? Yeah, I think that's
Lincoln Park.
Lincoln Park.
At least it used to be called Lincoln Park.
So that will go, that will be sometime this year. Trying to think if there's any other major projects. We continue to do work at Inwood Park. We are looking at a project in Mount Airy in collaboration with the Cincinnati Outdoor what's the R in Coral? Outdoor
Off-road
yeah.
Alliance.
The off-road biking group. We're looking at putting in at Mount Airy Forest a skills course for beginners, like a training center for biking. So that's something that we're looking at for this year. I can't think of any other major.
The boat dock is once again got installed. They decided it had to go out to bid. The last I heard, they had not put the RFP together. Trying to get all that information together so that they can get it out. My guess is they're going to put it out and there's going to be one bidder and we're going to be back where we were in December, but delayed by 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
And then also with Mount Airy, I made a gift, and then the foundation has made a gift, and they're buying one of those off-road wheelchairs
Oh, yeah.
that the group Luke 5 Adventures does. So they usually kids with developmental disabilities that they can get them on any kind of trail that have to go over trees, whatever, because they have what they call Sherpas that are in front and in back and just taking them through the woods. Very, very cool thing.
Yep.
It's
And then
awesome.
the only other major thing, Steve, is, as we said earlier, that this study that we had performed by the consultants, we really want to focus on how do we attack this, because it's a huge number when you look at, and the focus has been, so like as we put in capital requests of the city for this coming year, we're trying to hit as many of the poor and fair assets that need attention. But it will be an ongoing discussion item for the park board. How do we tackle so that we don't get farther behind on infrastructure in the parks? But that's about it. Parks, the state of the parks. There's a lot happening.
I do want to, for the Ezra Charles, that's going to go in Laurel Park.
Laurel Park, that's it. Yep.
I got a text from business services.
Back in the
please
day,
say
Craig,
Park.
back in the day before they renamed the road Ezra Charles, that road was called Lincoln Park Drive.
Oh, okay.
I knew that there was a reason why that name stuck out in my, and that's why the Lincoln Recreation Center is right there, the CRC Center. So, yeah. Okay, is there any other business for the good of the order that anyone would like to bring up? Craig, if you could do the notes, and as soon as you have them done, circulate those so that John has those since he wasn't able to join us. And should we plan a February, late February, early March, or what do you think, Craig? I guess, who was it Fifth Third that wanted to come in? Who wanted to come in and
PNC
present?
Bank.
PNC?
Yes.
Well,
okay, kind of look at the calendar. I do know, so February the 12th, the actual budget targets will come out for the city. So looking at that, it's going to be, I'm hoping to get a lot of the budget stuff completed before then look at the targets. So I'll be fine if we want to target end of February or end of March. It really, if we can get a meeting with Kay beforehand.
yeah, I'm sure that I'll push with Kay. I would anticipate in the next couple weeks, we'll reschedule that with PNC. And that could then give them, if we scheduled our next meeting for the end of March, that would give them time, if we wanted to schedule them in at that meeting, that gives them time to react and present to us. I anticipate the meeting with Kay will be an information sharing, and then ask that perhaps in our March meeting that they come with a presentation and recommendations for what they would like to propose. How about if we do that?
Sounds
So-
like a good idea.
Sounds right.
That's winded discussion for, let's look at March in your calendars.
We'd like to target the 24th from 3 to 5 or the 31st from 3 to 5 or another day.
The 24th at this point works for me.
Wide open right now.
I'm open.
Why don't we book the 24th, Craig?
Okay. And I'll send a meeting invite out, and then I'll get those notes out here, hopefully I'd like to get them out by the end of this week, if not next week.
That's fine. Next week's fine, Craig. Whenever you can. And that would be great. So we were going to say 3 o'clock on March the 24th. Perfect.
So
And we will, if there's any additional updates, we'll send email exchanges to everybody with information. If there's stuff that comes out of our legal review for endowments or whatever comes up between now and March, we will circulate for information purposes. Steve, just so you know, since this is a public committee, so if we forward information emails to you, just don't reply all and make comments about it, because that then is a breach of open meetings.
makes
So
sense.
just let you know that. But we can share information, we can share things for informational purposes, as long as there's no deliberation and discussion on it.
Got it.
Great. Well, I want to thank you all. Finished right at 4:05. I'd hoped
That's a
for 4
record.
o'clock.
That is a record.
Hey, it's a new year.
Nair's not here.
Yeah, so put in it must be our missing member that must bog us down.
Yeah.
But no, I appreciate your guys' time, and I appreciate very much Kevin continuing to work with us. And we will be in touch.
All right.
Until next year, when I start saying, we gotta get some money out of that park.
You are to forget everything you knew about park
Yes.
finances and money squirreled away, Kevin, if once you're reelected to council.
Yeah, I don't want to be up there. He can see it. Why are you spending that park money?
A year from now, when you're in front of the finance committee and Kevin Flynn says, how about your 329 account, Craig? How much money do you have in there?
Yeah, by then we're going to have to change our reporting.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so. We'll significantly have to change it. Okay. I don't know if Mary's online, but Mary, we're going to deem the meeting adjourned at this point.
Okay.
And again, thank you all, and we will be in touch.